How's it going, everyone? Jiivita here with a crash course on chiseling. This video keeps getting bigger and bigger. I keep setting up more and more stuff, so I think I'm just going to start jumping into this before this video ends up being an hour long. So this video is requested by a number of people, including James H. and Aniled Lady. I believe Aniled Lady was probably the first, and she called out specifically these gears. James H. also called out specifically all of basically the block rotation and texture issues you can run into with chiseling, so we'll cover all of that in a little bit. So right off the bat, we have three different types of chisels. We have square, slope, and bevel. Slope was the first one, and square and bevel came later. The square chisel allows you to make things like half blocks, slabs, walls, and stairs. The slope allows you to make ramps, and the bevel is kind of actually in between the two. So if you look up here, here's an example of the square chisel, slope chisel, and then the bevel chisel right here. Come off to the side, give you a little bit more perspective. So have an upside down stairs, upside down ramp, and whatever you want to call that funny thing. It's kind of somewhere in between the two. And if you look here, for each type of chisel, there's two subtypes. So we have the basic chisels down below with the precise chisels up above. So we have stone, copper, and iron for the basic, and titanium, silver, and gold for the precise. The difference between these chisels is that a basic chisel is going to take two corners at a time, whereas a precise chisel is only going to take one corner at a time. So let's place some blocks here. So I have a basic iron bevel chisel here, and it's going to take two corners at the same time. So if I look in the middle here, it's going to take the left and right corners. And so just look between those, and it's going to take those two corners. If I look right here, it's now going to take the left bottom and left top corner. So there we go. And however, we could use a precise chisel, and now we can look directly at the corner we want to remove and simply chisel it off. So as you can see, it's a pretty simple system. However, it allows for some pretty complex and mind-bending shapes of like, how in the world am I going to make that shape, or how did that person make that shape if you're seeing somebody else's handiwork. So it's pretty insane. Out here, I have laid out, there's 48 basic shapes, and if you take into account all the different rotations, there are 658 different shapes and rotations of those shapes. So it's pretty crazy. But to just give you a little bit of an idea, here are the three different chisels. Each one of these blocks has only been hit once by a precise chisel. So right here, there's just one little chunk taken out with the square chisel. This is one corner taken off with the slope chisel, and then one corner taken off with the bezel chisel. Coming down here, now it's two. Down here again, we've now taken off three corners for each block. Over here, we've taken off four corners. So now, this is actually a very good point, is that this is the square chisel. Over here is the bevel chisel. You can see they made the same exact shape. And what's really cool is once you get it down to a half slab, even if you used a square chisel, you could come along and use a bevel chisel to modify it. Or if you used a bevel chisel, you could come and use a square chisel to modify this half block down further. Once you get past this point, it is locked to the type of chisel. So in other words, you can't mix slope and bevel together like so. And if I were to place a block down here and hit with the bevel chisel and then try to switch over to a square chisel, you see nothing happens. You have to get it down to that half slab first, or start off with the chisel that you're going to work with. So now I'm able to switch over to a square, but once I do, I'm now locked to square. So I can't switch back to bevel later. So that's kind of the one loophole in being able to use more than one type of chisel on the same block. It's also handy to note that you can use the basic and the precise to interchange. So I can quickly chisel this block down to say just that, and then come in with the precise chisel and then bring it down to just one corner left. But moving along, this is actually the smallest you can make a slope block. So from here on, we just have the square and the bevel. So this is with just 3 corners left, 2 corners left, and then finally 1 corner left on these blocks. And come over here and look at some of the interesting things that you can make. These are each individual blocks, or this is 1 block right here, these 2 corners, and it's kind of making this spiral shattered kind of effect. And right here we have these kind of floating gem or diamond type things. The interesting thing is that this right here is made from this right here. So each one of these little slopes is actually 1 corner of these 4 blocks, and so pretty interesting. And then over here, this is made with the bevel chisel, and here's the square chisel. And so let's take a look at how you can make this. So let's first take this block and we're going to pull out our basic bevel chisel that's going to take 2 corners at the same time, or 1 edge depending on how you look at it. And we're just going to reduce each block to its smallest shape that we can, at least with a basic chisel. So we can hit it 3 times and it brings it down to just this kind of wedge shape. If we try to hit it again, nothing happens because it's not precise. Okay, now we've got this whittled down to kind of like a tube. Now we can switch over to our precise chisel. However, it is important to note that in order to gain the functionality of the precise chisels, you do need to come over here, scroll down to Epic 1 and pick up this Chisel Epic. It unlocks the ability to do 1 corner at a time. Otherwise, the precise chisels will act exactly like the basic chisels. But now we can chisel this down to just the corners left. And there we go. Now we have a little diamond, so very nice. We can actually do the exact same thing with the slope chisel, so let's go ahead and kind of whittle this down. I'd recommend only hitting these things once with the slope chisel because they do kind of weird things otherwise. So now that we're down to that basic shape, we can use the precise chisel to start whittling this down a little bit further. So there we go. Now we have this, it's kind of an odd shaped diamond, but we can actually hit this again. Let's see here, that corner, there we go. You can hit this again to make it basically just a bigger version of what we just made with the bevel chisel. And there we go. So now we have these small little diamonds and then a bigger diamond right here. Very nice. And if you want to know how to make this is pretty easy. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to use, you could either use a stone chisel or a bevel chisel, but we're going to make all of these blocks basically into half blocks or walls or slabs, whatever you want to call them. There we go. Now that we have this nice flat surface to work with, now we can come in and basically we're just going to pick pretty much anywhere. So how about we do the inside first? So we're going to look at all of these inside corners and just take them out. And that's going to leave a hole. Now we can do the outsides of the hole. And there we go. Now we kind of have this nice knot, circle, whatever you want to call that. And do the same thing right below it. And there we go. So we could just continue making this hole right here, or we could just kind of follow the rope itself. So we could do the outside corners first. It really doesn't matter, it's just however it helps you to think about it. And there we go. So pretty awesome. This was made again by the square chisel, and I think you can see pretty easily how it was made. But each set of these little squares is an entire block. Again, you can just shave it down to the half block size, and then you just, every other space that you can chisel, or every other corner that can be chiseled, you just punch out. Before we get too much further, I want to call out an important detail is that while pretty much every single block that I can think of can be chiseled, there are some limitations. So if you want to chisel anything much higher than titanium, you're going to actually need a gem chisel. So for every version of these basic and precise chisels, there's a gem counterpart. So this diamond chisel is the precise version of the bevel chisel. However, there's another gem chisel that is just the basic beveled version. So in addition to being much more durable, they can chisel more blocks, and they are crazy fast, which is not exactly a good thing at sometimes, but you do need a gem chisel to be able to chisel titanium, gems, and even hard compact coal. The only block that comes to mind that is simply unchiselable would be glass. It's also good to note that just about any interactable block can be rotated using chisels, so these machines can be rotated, as well as these storage blocks, and pretty much just about anything. The furnaces, and even beacon controls. So, very nice. Okay, so next thing up on the agenda is basically block placement and texture alignment. So as you can see, this particular shape, it's kind of interesting, but the texture is just going every which way. And if you're going for this look, okay, power to you, but most likely you're going to want this to blend together a little bit better, kind of like this. Here's another example over here of how this texture blends nicely into that. But then it doesn't blend right there. And then over here we have the nice end of this block, and the texture blends right here. So quite a few things to consider, but basically to make it easy on yourself, if you want all of the textures to line up, basically you just need to make sure that you place the blocks in the same way each time. So let's give a little bit of an example here. So I can place this block on the ground looking to the south or the north, and it will place the same way. However, if I place it on the ground facing east or west, it's actually going to orient it a little bit differently. So you can see this top texture is going north to south, and then this texture is now going east to west. However, this front facing texture is actually lined up, so you can run into issues just because of that. Also, if I place a block on the side of another block, it'll be a little bit different. So there we go. Now this top texture is going a different way. And so as you can see, these textures are going every which way, and if I start to chisel them together, they're just not going to look that great. So there we go. We actually got lucky with this one, and it managed to line up. However, this one, you can see the top block is going horizontally, this block is going vertically, and they're trying to act like the same texture. However, since they are technically two separate blocks, it's not working so great. So when you're building your basic shape, it's helpful to just go ahead and place them all while you're facing the same direction and in the same way. So you can place them all on the ground, or maybe you could place them all onto other blocks if you're doing like a wall or something, just as long as you're being consistent as you go. There we go. Now all the textures are going the same way and blending together seamlessly. So very nice. So right now we're looking at the rings of the trunk. However, if we chisel this, it's actually going to bring the side texture up and cover it. So if we want the grain to actually show, we have to do something like that. So it pulls that bottom texture up into the end right there. So it's a little bit strange, but just keep in mind that any slope, it's not going to take what you're looking at, it's going to take the bottom or the top texture. So I chiseled that right there. It takes the top texture and drags it down. So we could talk endlessly on how to chisel things. However, chiseling is just one of those things you kind of have to jump in there and just experiment and learn. Certainly one of the things that I found most helpful was to go around and look at what other people have done and kind of figure out how to reverse engineer it. So this is a gear it's not my design. This was made by Cook Viper, and he even ingeniously put a chain on it. So I didn't finish the chain all the way around just so you could see the gear a little bit better. His original design did not have any of these holes or divots, but I was looking at it, I was like, oh, you could kind of do that and make some interesting designs. Most of these gears, as you can see, they're centered on actually a group of 4 blocks. However, you can center it on a single block, and actually this awesome gear over here that was designed by KK Bell, if I'm not mistaken, is also centered on a single block and has these really cool, huge, ornate holes in them. But yeah, we're gonna build that here in a little bit. But as you can see, there's all sorts of different little gears that you can make. So these kind of like little cogs. This one is just plain boring, but if you take a look here, this is like an upside down staircase. So this is made with the square chisel, all this around here, and then the tips are made with the bevel chisel, as well as this little kind of axle diamond type shape right there. Then right here we just have a group of 4 blocks that are beveled, so you can just go ahead make a wood version, why not? And so this is very easily made. You just doink, 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 doink. And can't quite reach the top, but maybe I can get it with the precise chisel. So, oh, can I reach? Can I reach? There we go. This is where having a lot of control is kind of helpful, just to give you the extra reach. And then we could put a little center thing. How about we just go ahead and do that as well? Place some more trunks. Shave it down to half blocks, and actually we can go a little bit further than even that. And there we go. So that's how that little thing is made. And I was trying to take basically this gear and make this smaller, but it looks a little bit odd that these seem a little bit too short, but then if you make them a little bit longer, then they're way too long. But you can also put some pretty interesting little detail work here in the inside. Over here, here's same attempt. It's quite a bit more boring. You could certainly work in different materials in the center here, maybe punch a few holes into it using either the bevel or the slope chisel. So we can do the same thing with the slope chisel if we want a bigger hole, kind of like so, except that's probably, yeah, now it looks like it's kind of floating off to the side. So this gear isn't quite big enough for that, but yeah, that's how I made these holes and divots over here. But anyway, let's jump into making this gear. So if you're going to try to make a gear, I would highly recommend just kind of pausing the video and take a screenshot, or just pause the video and use that as your reference. It's going to make your life a lot easier than trying to just imagine and figure out how to do it. Okay, so looking at our gear over here, we can see that out of this compacted copper, we have basically a plus shape. And this is kind of where it comes in handy to mix in a few other materials, as it makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on. But certainly if you wanted to make it all out of one material like the machine copper, you certainly have that option. But let's go ahead and place this down here, and this is just going to help highlight where the center of this actually is. And it looks like maybe, yeah, I kind of messed that up, but we can kind of roll with it. Instead of having it stick out quite so far, we go ahead and just have it like a little diamond. So for the overall style of the gear, I think it should be bigger than that, but we can just kind of roll with it. So now we're just going to stick another 4 blocks on either side here. And then from here, and so that design calls for some lanterns, but we could put anything we wanted there, including just more machined copper. So, but for now, we can just go ahead and leave it kind of blank. There we go. And so now we're just going to continue out, I guess, these diagonal gear bits, whatever those are supposed to be called. And so we're going to need another, and then there. So in order to make these, it's pretty simple. You can just use a basic chisel, but it might be helpful to have a precise chisel as well. But we're using the slope, and we're just going to kind of smooth this off a little bit. And if you want this really exaggerated point, you can certainly keep that, or you can blunt it off to make it a little bit more gear-like. There we go. Now it's just a matter of repeating it on the other side. So that works pretty well. However, you can see there's just a, we got a 90-degree angle here, but then this is more like a 45-ish degree angle. So what we can do is we can fill in a block there and actually switch over to our bevel chisel and chisel it all the way down to kind of just a wedge shape. So it's not perfectly like this angle, but it's a little bit closer. And from here, it's basically just a matter of repeating what we did below, above. Okay, so we're just about done. So as you can see right here, we use that little bevel kind of wedge type thing. And so I just place the blocks in these areas so they can be chiseled down to that shape. So come over here and just start whittling it down. This is where having grapples can be very handy. There we go. Let's see here. Oh, we still have one more up here. And looks like we need to eat some food. Okay, looks like we have the basic shape of the gear. So we could put some lanterns or maybe just some more machined copper there. Really doesn't matter. Oh, there we go. That works perfectly good. If we wanted to put a chain on it, the chain is fairly simple to add. Basically, we're just going to place blocks kind of like so. That one actually doesn't need to be there. And now it's a matter of just bringing it down to a wedge. So we want a little bit of the gear to show, so we're going to remove the edges to reflect that. So there we go. Now we kind of have a little outline, and basically we're just going to have to come and bring this at an angle until it meets the other side. So let's see here, bring something like that. And yeah, probably go like that. So this block is probably waste. actually, that's probably a little too steep of an angle. Yeah, I like that one better. That's cutting across a little too much. Now let's go ahead and... There we go. So now you just continue the chain around as much as you want. You could have it come, say all the way around and then go over to another gear, or I believe Cook Viper had his actually going just straight down. So it came up out of the ground, came over the ground, came over the gear, and then came back down. So certainly you can do this pretty much any way you want. And coming over here, we have the basic layout for this particular gear. So this is one of the teeth. There's the diagonal teeth, and it's just going to be a matter of mirroring what we already have to the rest of the gear. So probably the easiest thing would be to finish this kind of ring layout. And so there we go. My block, there we go. We got a block there, and there we go. So now it's just a matter of kind of chiseling that down. So this inside block is going to be a half block, and then we have kind of an angle like so, another half block, another angle, and then another half block. So there we go. Go ahead and hit these outside corners. Very nice. Do the same thing right here. Go ahead and hit these inside corners. Those actually need to be half blocks anyway. And here's where having a precise chisel is handy, but I technically don't need it if I was willing to climb up there and get it. Let's see, what am I? Oh, okay. Like, that's getting a little annoying. Go ahead and get rid of this one too. And bring this down to a half block, get these corners. Go ahead and get the outside corners. And there we go. So now we have our kind of ring shape. As you can see, in between each ring we have this one block. So we can go ahead and place that on all of our corners there. And then from there, it's kind of that Pac-Man shaped sandwich biting that block. So we can take our machine copper and sandwich in there. There we go, and then it's just a matter of smoothing it off. So we're going to take our, let's see here, that would actually be the bevel, because in order to make those come together, it has to be the bevel chisel. So hit that edge there. Hit that edge there, and we actually are going to need, looks like 2 more blocks. Here, I can just place it right there. And possibly, let's see here. Am I messing myself up? I don't think so-ish. We're gonna need some more blocks somewhere. Okay, so that's a block, that's a block. Okay. So yeah, we can actually work with this. So that's gonna be, there we go. And so now we need a block right there to smooth that off. So yeah, this is where having a guide would be invaluable. Either a part that you've already built or a picture. So go ahead and place that there, and then this is actually shaved off. So very nice. Now we're actually starting to look like a gear, and could be really convenient to just build some scaffolding to get up there, but you can also use a grapple. Go ahead and finish that part right there. That's good. And actually, I didn't need those extra blocks, so. Let's go ahead and get rid of those. Okay, so let's shave that off on both sides. And it looks like, yeah, now we just need the diagonal bits. Get our kind of Pac-Man shape biting this block right here. Jump. And let's see here. So yeah, that... I don't know if our control is going to be enough to be able to... Can we reach that? Oh my goodness, we managed to reach. That's crazy. And so now... you can make that kind of half blocks. And actually, that block isn't needed at all, apparently. There we go, so that edge right there is finished. And can we see that edge? Ooh, so just barely made that. Block there and there. And there we go. So now just one left to go. And I think actually this time, it's probably kind of hard to tell what I'm doing, so I'll go ahead and build a little platform to stand on. So I can be a little bit closer so y'all can see a little bit better what is going on. Of course, now I kind of lose a little bit of perspective, but... Okay, so yeah, we're gonna have our Pac-Man shape biting that. And that is going to be blunted there and chiseled there to meet up with that. There we go. So now we're gonna need 2 wedges. Like so. Oh, fell off. And it looks like we need, yeah, a block there and there. And there we go. I think that should be good. Yeah, so there we go. Now we have this beautiful gear. This was designed by KK Bell, or at least it was in one of his builds. If he got it from somebody else, I don't know who, but pretty awesome gear. And the original design actually called, this is refined rock here, but he actually had machined iron, which looks of course a lot better. I just didn't happen to have any on hand, and you could certainly drive the axle back behind the gear to make it look like it's, well, have an axle. So very nice. Okay, well I think that just about wraps everything up. There's one more thing I want to call to attention, is that if you're trying to basically look at somebody else's build and figure out how they made things, a really helpful thing to keep in mind is that many of these shapes are set on the half block. And what I mean by that is, you can see here is the full block, but the design is actually back here on the other side of the block. But you can actually mirror this on the other side. So if we come around here, it looks pretty flat and dull, but we can put more blocks on this side and continue the pattern. So that way it looks like it's actually made out of one block. However, it's, well, not. And this will also affect how your build comes together, and can be a little bit annoying if your build isn't going to accommodate that particular shape very well, or being set on the half block. So as you can see, we basically just have a wall, but it's using twice as many blocks to accomplish that. But if you're trying to make a particular shape and you think, oh, this is just made out of 1 or 2 blocks, and you try to chisel it and you find that you can only make a shape that looks like this, it can be a little bit frustrating until you realize, like, oh, that's made out of 4 blocks, not just 2. So it can make a huge difference and can save yourself a bit of frustration by keeping that in mind. So anyway, I think that covers the chisel tutorial about as well as I know how to do it. Honestly, it's one of those things you kind of need to just jump in there, experiment, maybe try to copy what somebody else has done to help you learn how to make different shapes. And then once you get comfortable using them, you can just kind of go from there and make some really amazing things. All it takes is a little bit of patience and an open mind. But anyway, this was Jiivita. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more like this, and if there's anything you didn't like, please let me know down below. Also, if you like my channel, want to get cool perks, check out my Patreon page. Until next time, peace.